We are starting with the interactive session. You may ask your questions.
ജിയോട് സംസാരിക്കാൻ ആഗ്രഹിക്കുന്നവർക്ക് കൈവക്കാം, മൈക്ക് അവിടെ തരുന്നുണ്ട്.
Tejasvi Prabhu Krishna ji, Namaste. My name is Murugan Ajari. I am a finance and accounting professional, presently pursuing chartered accountancy and cost and management accountancy. As we all know, one of the inevitable skills every youngster must have is, without any doubt, the personal finance management. We youngsters getting the job, and once we start earning, the biggest dilemma arises, whether as to how to disciplined way of managing the money. Lack of financial knowledge leads to many financial problems, as we all know. In my perspective, irrespective of the stream, whether it is arts, science or commerce, the financial education, the personal finance management should be a subject in every courses. We should have an initiative towards inclusion of financial management in our curriculum.
I think this question and this suggestion deserves a round of applause. Thank you. I will just give you, a small anecdote from my own experience. So, you can sit. Thank you. Most of us, like whether it is Prafulla Krishna, most of our Vidyarthi Parishad, ABVP, and BJP activists, most of us spend 90% of our time doing party work, doing Sangathan Kam and all of these things. We get so little time to think about issues like personal finance and all of that. When I was practicing as a lawyer, you would earn something and then you would spend it and go about your life. Suddenly one day a few months ago it just hit me that, gosh, I have never thought about these things and it's so important. And this is something that we are not taught at home, nor is it something that we are taught at schools as curriculum. So most of us don't know what are the avenues for investment, how to invest, how to manage personal financial discipline, and these are very serious issues. And as young people, it is not just political issues and other social issues that we must be concerned about. It is very important for us to have a dialogue, a discussion about these issues as well, because these are real issues. So, it's a very good suggestion. A few months ago, I came across a book called Let's Talk Money, written by this investment advisor called Monica Helen. It was one of the easiest to read books on personal finance management that I have read, which helped me greatly. So I would really suggest and request all of you to also give it a read. And thank you for bringing this very important subject up today. It triggered a thought in me that we should definitely write and request the government and bodies like NCERT, which make our curriculums, introduce a chapter on personal finance management. I certainly will raise this issue in the parliament, and I will also write to the concerned people about this. Because without being trained towards this, we will all end up without, and when you are a young country, it's very important to do your life insurance properly, to do your health insurance properly, to do your savings, retirement savings, etc. properly. Because you are young, and this young country will tomorrow be an old country also. So if we do not plan for that today as a society, as individuals, then we cannot be dependent solely on government social security to take care of all of those things. So this is a very important issue, and I must also tell you that this is the first time somebody has raised this issue in a political program of this kind. I'm really happy that you did this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for putting some insights on this relevant issue. Sir, I have one more significant, different idea. To have a healthy culture in this country, central government has introduced the revolutionary historical Fit India movement. Sir, can we have an extension of this Fit India movement, specifically focusing on Kerala, peculiarly emphasizing on Kerala? In my opinion, Kalari, we have to emphasize on Kalari training centers as an extension of Fit India movement. That will encapsulate the traditional culture of Kerala.
First, elect a BJP government, it will do all of these things in Kerala.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I recently joined Bharatiya Janata Yuva Morcha after realizing its widespread impact it can make in this country. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. So, my name is Krishna Jha. I'm a postgraduate student in law, and I'm a research assistant in QSAT. So, my question is with regard to the. I think we have a lot of laws in our country. So, being a law student, I know we have laws, but when we come to the part of implementation, there we lack a lot. So, what is your opinion on that implementation part as you being a member of parliament? So what can we, as instead of the authorities are not taking anything, or they're not even concerned of all these things. So it is not the lack of law, it is the lack of implementation we have facing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think the reason for this problem is not because we have less laws. The problem is we have too many laws. That is the problem of India. If you have limited number of laws which are clear, then implementing the law is easy. If you have too many laws, then it is not going to help administration or good governance. It is only going to help those officials who can take money out of you. Do you know why the Prime Minister in the last 6 years, his focus has been to remove old laws? His focus has been to eliminate laws which are still in the statute book, which were made by the British 150 years ago. Even recently in the parliament, the Prime Minister was speaking about how there was one post called Churchill Cigar Assistant. You may have seen in his speech. They asked him what this post is. So when Churchill was the Prime Minister, there was somebody in Tamil Nadu who was making cigars for him and was assisting him in a cigar when he came to India. So even after Churchill ceased to be Prime Minister, years after Churchill died, even after 100 years after that, the rule and the position was still there. There was an officer called Churchill Cigar Assistant. So, we never reviewed these laws. Just like that, the Factories Act was made in 1948. The Minimum Wages Act was made sometime in 18 something. All of these laws, the Prime Minister has tried to simplify it, make the number of law less, and the language also very easy. Now, wear a helmet and be on the left side of the road. If this is the law, you will understand. If you word it in such a way that you will have to go to a lawyer to understand what the law is, then how will somebody follow the law? Also, you have these municipal bylaws. It says if you want to construct a house, you must leave so many feet in the front, you must leave so many feet. In the back, setback area must be like this. FSI should be this much. The laws are made in such a way that if you try to build a building like that, it is impossible to build a building in those laws. So what is the only alternative? The moment you put brick, mortar and sand in front of your house, that local municipal officer will come and say he'll give a notice and say this is not according to section 66A 1AB. You should not do this. And then you will realize that because your architect will tell you, sir, if we want to build it in the way that the officer is telling, the building will crash. Then you have no choice but to give him 10,000, 15,000, 25,000 or whatever he demands, and you will have to continue. So the problem in India is not that we have less laws. The problem is we have too much laws, is why we have so little implementation.
Tejaswiji, I'm Ranjit Jagannath, and I am a pilot and I fly planes in Zambia. So basically, I'm an NRI. And what I wanted to ask you is something which you are very vocal about, which is the distortion of Indian culture and Indian history. Now, a few days back, when Dr. Sridharan was going on his campaign and meeting people, we did find people touching his feet. Now, when people were doing that, there was an entire troll army on Twitter, Facebook, branding it as a Sangeet. So, if I touch someone elder's feet, regardless of who they are or across party lines, that becomes a Sangeet thing. Now, I fear, is this a cultural attack?
No doubt about it.
And subsequent, my question is this. Recently, you shared a symposium, I don't remember it correctly, about Bhagwan Birsa Munda. Now, he's a local leader in Ranchi. And I'm not sure whether people, like average people like me in Kerala knows much about him. Same with Kittur Rani Chinnamma. If you tell her story in northern India, my question is that, will or are we going to see in coming years, since the BJP government, BJP is in the government, that these regional heroes will get national recognized?
No, absolutely. Two very important points that you have raised today. So in the first instance, you know what has happened in this country? It's a good thing that's happening, because people will start eventually realizing this. Anything that is nationalist, anything that is pro-India, anything that is pro our culture, people say this is Sangeet. It's a good thing for the Sangh. It is a good thing for the BJP. We are not calling them anti-national. They themselves are taking the tag by saying anything that is pro-India is BJP. So what is anti-India? We are not saying you are anti-India, boss. You have labelled yourself anti-India by calling us pro-India. You have labelled yourself anti-Hindu by referring to everything that we celebrate that is pro-Hindu. You are calling that communal, you are calling that, you are deriding it. So we are not giving you those titles. You have travelled in other parts of the country as well, other parts of the world as well. There is only one culture in the world where people are unconditionally respected only for their age and seniority. The moment you see a senior person, we are instinctively, our nature is to go and fall at their feet. That is a culture of this country. Only those derooted, deracinated idiots in the Communist Party will not know about this. Because in their kangaroo court culture, all they learn about is court-martial, all they learn is about saluting the comrades. They never learn about these cultural rootedness. Yesterday I was in Palakkad. I want to tell you this. I have been part of so many political roadshows campaigning for political leaders. If people like their candidate, they generally wave at them, they show victory sign, they show smile on their face, they show a thumbs up. For the first time I have seen, when a candidate is going, people are not waving and smiling. The moment they see him, they do namaskaram and come and prostrate at their feet. First time I am seeing this. Even if Pinarayi Vijayan takes rebirth 100 times, well, he's a communist, he may not believe in rebirth. It's a good thing. So even if he does get born 100 times and leads the same communist life that he does, he will not find people who come and touch his feet. Because that is tapasya. You have to earn it. So it's a good thing. These subtle attacks on the cultural aspect of this tradition, this lifestyle, they should keep happening, because that's when people will realize that, see, they are anti everything that is Indian. Two, with respect to your question on local heroes, local issues. See, one big problem that our country faced in our education system, again it is the doing of the communists, was that we learned more about Scottish history, we learned more about British history than we learned about our local culture and language. I spoke about it in the parliament a few days ago on the new education policy. The big monumental reform that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has done through the education reform is to bring education in local language and local context. What do we mean by this? A few years ago, I was in a northern part of Karnataka, which is a very arid, dry zone, half semi-desert. People, farmers every day try to, pray God for rains and all that. So I went to a house, the kid, mother was very happy that the child was learning in convent school, English medium. Father was very angry, father was a farmer. So the kid was by-hearting a rhyme. And then the father said, go inside, don't keep sitting and, by-hearting this rhyme loudly in front of me. Go inside the room. I asked him, why are you so angry? The father said, sir, last 3 months there is no rainfall. Every day we are doing some or the other puja and this, that, everything, praying at local temple to get rainfall. This son of mine, every day evening from school, he comes and starts saying, this rain, rain, go away, little Johnny wants to play. First of all, I don't know who this little Johnny friend of his is. And I don't know why he doesn't like rain. So, in England, because it keeps raining so frequently, children can't go and play. In India, we love the rain, we love the smell of the water, the rain touching the soil. So our culture, our textbooks had nothing to do with local context, it had nothing to do with local language. See, most of us, even though we learn Malayalam, most of us, even though we learn English, our thinking will be in our mother tongue. If you look at how we make our sentence formation, all Indians English, maybe with the exception of someone like Shashi Tharoor. Okay? So, most of our sentences, the formation of our sentences, the construction of our sentences, will be akin to what we think in our mother tongue. Because that's how our brains are wired. But for so long, our education system was so unscientific that our language of learning, language of understanding, comprehension was a foreign language. It is unfortunate that, I am having to talk to you in a foreign language today. When I have been spending so much time here, I can now understand at least 20-30% of what our karyakartas are talking in the car and around me. I have even told them that if they are abusing me or something, I will pick it up quickly. So, our languages have so many common words. all our languages, all languages across the country are interlinked. In Kannada I say Ellarigu Namaskara. In Malayalam I say Ellarkum Namaskara. Yesterday he was telling me about, we were discussing, he is a Sanskrit professor himself. So, in Kerala, in Malayalam, the word for gold is Swarnam. In Sanskrit, it is Swarnam. It is Suvarnam. In the same way, Ponnam. Ponna is in Tamil, Ponna is in Malayalam, Honna is in Kannada, Sona is in Tamil, in Hindi. So all our languages are connected. But the unfortunate reality was, if in the 3-language policy, if a Kannadiga wanted to study Bengali, it was not allowed. If you in Kerala wanted to study Kashmiri, it was not allowed. For the first time, the national education policy under the 3-language policy is permitting any Indian in any part of the country to study any 2 Indian languages of his choice. This is going to create a lot of employment in the coming days for people who will study our local language. The question was, if I study Kannada literature or Malayalam literature, what job I will get? So only job that I can get is as a teacher in a Malayalam school. Now if you learn Kashmiri, if you learn Kannada, if you learn Malayalam, you can get employment opportunities across the country. This is a policy change that has happened. So we will celebrate Birsa Munda, we will celebrate Ayyankali, we will celebrate Rani Channamma, we will celebrate hundreds of heroes across the country, because now, with thanks to the new education policy, we will have both local language and local context getting importance. Sorry for the long answer.
I have a
Ladies first.
Namaste sir, I'm Anakha, I'm a second year law student at School of Legal Studies, Cochin University. So in your speech, you had mentioned about love jihad. So coming from the state where it is so prevalent, as a common citizen of the state and as a girl in the state, I have noticed that even among the common people of the state, there exists a feeling that this love jihad doesn't exist in reality, that it is an agenda which is being spread by the right wing for their so-called vested interests. This is the common narrative which is being propagated in the state, sadly, even in the wake of so many girls being abducted or fraudulently married or cheated. So even if the BJP is not in power in the state, sir, according to you, I just want to know what are your opinions as to the reasons for such a false narrative to take place in the literate state of India, and what is the hope ahead to counter this narrative?
Thank you. See, you use this word literate state. The problem is that this literacy is a communist literacy. And this is a problem throughout the country. We have this cultural amnesia that has taken place. And this word love jihad was not coined by BJP, RSS. It was coined for the first time by the Christians here. Right? And the matter went up to the court. And the court took judicial notice of this reality. So this is first not something that is happening, that is, is done by, we do some 4 or 5 people, Yuva Morcha guys, sat, and then, one day we had nothing else to do. So we met one day evening and then we decided to come up with this conspiracy. This is a social reality. 2, are we advocating that certain people should marry only certain people and that A is not free to marry B? No. Personally speaking for myself, I would say that any person is free to marry whoever he or she wants to marry. This is a free country. Now the question arises, which is why I said in my speech, that the problem here is not about a Muslim girl marrying a Hindu boy or a Hindu boy marrying a Muslim girl. This is not the problem. The problem is the law system in this country is such that the Muslims are given an exception to enjoy their personal laws. And these personal laws are in so many respects anti-women. They have not had the kind of reforms that took place in so far as Hindu law was concerned. This puts all non-Muslim women who choose to marry a Muslim boy at a disadvantage. So a non-Muslim girl, if she chooses to marry, whether out of intention or fraudulently, a Muslim boy, she will lose rights to property the way she would enjoy it if she were not married to a Muslim boy. She will lose rights to divorce, she will lose rights to inheritance, succession, in ways that she would otherwise enjoy if she were not married to a Muslim person. This is all the point. All that we are saying is this is a women's issue, it's a women's rights issue. So, it is very important for us to speak about this to young women also. And vocal people like you who are articulate, I think you have the responsibility to go and speak about it to more young women and make them realize of how they will be put at a disadvantage if they make this choice. That's all the problem is.
Sir,
Sorry, sir.
it's very short and important.
Okay, only one question. The time is 2 o'clock. We want to reach our time at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tejas ji, my name is Vinod Nandanam. I'm Traders Cell co-convener of Ernakulam Jilla. My 2 kids, boy and girl, are leaving for Canada for their high studies next week. So because when I tried to stop my boy, he wanted to study criminology and police administration. I asked him to stop. I asked him to search India in our institutions. He asked me, what do you have to offer to me? I don't know whether after the 2 years course, they will come back or not. It is brain leakage. It is a common practice in Kerala nowadays. So many our youngsters are leaving for Canada and Australia. Do we have a policy to offer anything to the young Indians, pan-India, not only Kerala?
Yes. So it's again a very important question. Prafulji, I must tell you, this interaction has been terrific. And I'm so happy that, we have such young, thinking, concerned, patriotic youngsters in Kerala here today in Ernakulam. You guys must go out and spread this positivity across the society. That's the only request I have. And sir, insofar as your question is concerned, every year, Indians spend more than 500 crore rupees. 500 crore rupees of private money trying to go and get an education abroad. You know what this 500 crore every year would have meant? It would mean so much. We can establish crazy big universities, a lot of things here. We can create Harvards every year. The reason why this did not happen was because, see, I keep saying this. What is New India? And with that, we will conclude. Adhyakji is looking at me and take just 2 more minutes. What is New India? What has Modi changed? Before Modi, there were 2 big curses that the Congress party had imposed on India. The first curse was Nehruvian socialism. Second curse was Nehruvian secularism. The socialism curse ensured that India did not progress economically. The secularism curse, Nehruvian secularism curse, ensured that India did not progress and thrive culturally. Now, Modi has ensured that India will put into dustbin both these dead and rotten ideas of Nehruvian socialism and Nehruvian secularism. Why couldn't foreign universities come and establish in India? Why did we not allow, why did our policies did not allow collaborations and learning centers between foreign universities and India? There was no rationale, but we did not allow it. A few years ago, a friend of mine wanted to establish a PUC college, 11th and 12th college in Bangalore. I was trying to help him get some permissions and all of these things, and I realized that to start a pub or a bar in Bengaluru is more easier than to start a school and a college. Because you have made so many laws, so many rules. So, take the classic case of medical education in India. I again spoke about this in Parliament a few days ago. If you want to study medical, if you don't get the limited amount of government quota seats, for which, for one seat you will have some 30,000-40,000 people applying, you will have to literally buy a seat which is auctioned. At what price? 50 lakh, 1 crore. Which is why so many people go from India to Russia to study engineering, medical. I'm sure you may have found people who go to Russia. This is a country of 1 billion people. But our people are going and studying human diseases in a country where the problem is lack of population. The same thing with PG. Lack of capacity in higher education infrastructure. So I must tell you, in the last 6 years of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, we have added 50% medical seats in the history of India. If there was 100 seats, after Modi we have added 100 more. That is the kind of capacity building. So now under the new education policy, we have allowed foreign universities to come and set up their bases here, get into agreements and MOUs with local universities and set up their infrastructure. So from now on, if say your son wanted to study criminology, say from Oxford or Harvard or a university from Canada, he need not go to Canada by spending so much money, taking an educational loan. And why are people staying back there? Because they want to repay that educational loan. And you cannot repay that educational loan by earning in Indian rupees. So you would want to stay back there and earn in dollars, because that way you can repay the loan easily. That is why you stay back. Once you stay back, 5 years, 6 years, you raise family there and you don't want to shift back, so brain drain happens. So this whole thing was the problem was because we did not have adequate, good quality higher education infrastructure in India. Now that is going to change very shortly thanks to the new education policy 2020, and we are very happy that all of you are vocal about these things. Friends, go ahead. All good people should not be restricted to just one small place. You should go around Kerala. Adhyakji, I request you. There are so many young, articulate girls and boys here in this auditorium. Make use of all of their talents and services. Organize small programs, Nukkad Sabhas, canteen programs, where people can go, all of you can go and start speaking and engaging and building a narrative towards these issues all across Kerala. Kerala's future is BJP, and you are the future of Kerala. Thank you so much.
I know many of you might have a lot of questions to ask, but due to time constraints, we are winding up the interactive session here. I invite Shri Ajil, Ernakulam District Treasurer, Bharatiya Janata Yuva Morcha, to deliver the vote of thanks.
നിവേദിച്ചിരിക്കുന്ന യുവമോർച്ചയുടെ ആദരണീയായ ദേശീയാധ്യക്ഷൻ ശ്രീ തേജസ്വി സൂര്യൻ, യുവമോർച്ചയുടെ സംസ്ഥാന അധ്യക്ഷനുമായ പ്രഫുൽ കൃഷ്ണയും മറ്റ് ഇവിടെ എത്തിച്ചേർന്നിരിക്കുന്ന എല്ലാ വ്യക്തികൾക്കും എൻ്റെ വിനീതമായ നമസ്കാരം. ഈ പരിപാടിയുടെ ഉദ്ഘാടകനായി എത്തിച്ചേർന്നിരിക്കുന്ന യുവമോർച്ചയുടെ ദേശീയാധ്യക്ഷൻ കർണാടകയുടെ എംപിയുമായ തേജസ്വി സൂര്യ അവർക്ക് യുവമോർച്ച എറണാകുളം ജില്ലാ കമ്മിറ്റിയുടെ പേരിലും എൻ്റെ പേരിലും നന്ദി രേഖപ്പെടുത്തുന്നു. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ യുവമോർച്ച കേരളത്തിൻ്റെ സമരനായകനും സംസ്ഥാന പ്രസിഡന്റുമായ പ്രഫുൽ കൃഷ്ണയ്ക്കും യുവമോർച്ച എറണാകുളം ജില്ലാ കമ്മിറ്റിയുടെ പേരിലും എൻ്റെ പേരിലും നന്ദി രേഖപ്പെടുത്തുന്നു. അതുപോലെ ഇവിടെ എത്തിച്ചേർന്നിരിക്കുന്ന എല്ലാവർക്കും, മാധ്യമ സുഹൃത്തുക്കൾക്കും മറ്റു ഭാരവാഹികൾക്കും യുവമോർച്ച എറണാകുളം കമ്മിറ്റിയുടെ പേരിലും എൻ്റെ പേരിലും വിനീതമായി